In other news, if you're interested in this sort of stuff, say you have a turbine inside a generator generating electricity at 30 hertz, and the copper wire runs down to another turbine inside a generator that generates electricity at 30 hertz, runs down to another turbine and generator that generates electricity at 30 hertz all the way into space. Now, one thing is very important here. Suppose the wires are on top and bottom like this. Now, the way alternating current works is if you have a light bulb, it does not saw back and forth between the lights. No. That would be too simple. As the magnet spins, this end goes, lights up, and then this one comes and lights up. But this is the magnet, and this is the active end, right? And it goes up, and then this one lights up, and then it goes on the bottom one lights up. And I don't even know if that's how a turbine generator works. The idea is top goes to the bottom goes, and top goes to the bottom goes. So let's say we crank the first turbine at 35 hertz. What's going to happen? Well, the change is going to propagate down the line, of course. And Planck looked at this problem. He said, what's going to propagate the speed of light? What's more, this is light. I heard this in a documentary about 8 years ago, walking through my dad's kitchen, and the guy just bam changed the subject. I thought, you don't know what that means. So I spent some time off and on thinking about it. Now, when the magnetic field rips the valence electrons up off the top, which through electrostatic repulsion push forward and rip these off the top, which pull them out of their valence orbits and fall into valence orbits at the same time, which would create photons, and blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't create a vacuum at the bottom where anything's pumped up, but it's key. So you got these electrons, and they're bouncing others out of their valence orbits. They're falling into valence orbits too, which point they emit photons. So even if we got this tube of wire, it can go in any direction, really. Right? It doesn't have to, oh, God's going straight. No, it should anywhere. So the photon lights up another electron, knocks out its valence orbit through electrostatic repulsion, moves a little bit, then drops back into the valence orbit, and emits another electron, and or else through electrostatic repulsion, it bumps another electron into a valence orbit, and it emits a photon. And just in this now, the top goes, the bottom goes, right? So the top lights up. It lights up with moving electrons and moving photons. Photons are light, and they're generated inside the copper here. And what we're left with is this revolving kind of thing, but it only counts when it hits the top or bottom wire. Revolving thing that lights it up with moving electrons and photons. And so each of these copper segments is light. It's not a beam of light, because a beam of light goes straight. It is the stuff of light generated from within the copper itself. Now, it goes a bit deeper than this. There's electrostatic repulsion. Two electrons are going near each other. They'll bounce off each other. But maybe one goes a little bit farther than the other goes. It's the same thing with light. When it hits an electron around an atom, is it'll transfer some of its energy and bounce the rest of the way back, and maybe knock the atom out of the balance orbit while it's at it. And I'm always excited. And question. Um, Now, I don't believe fused photons are in vogue. Anyone believes in them. But once the least amounts of energy from the photons, oh, it's never happening because these photons are being emitted by copper atoms and hitting other copper atoms, so its entirety is absorbed. That's what's good. That's what's good. The copper atoms are copper electrons are chugging along, and these photons are zooming between them. And, that's what's good. It wouldn't be light if it was going from copper to iron. So once again, look at it this way. This is a simplistic way of phrasing it, but electricity is how light travels through copper. That's the best I can do. Copper mesh. The copper mesh. We're not talking about a rod of copper. We're talking about copper mesh. The electrons don't move. We're talking about copper mesh. If it were a continuous piece of copper, they'd bump along. We're talking about copper mesh. The vast, see? They just get bumped up. Like I said. Of course. The electrons from the copper are just floating around in there, pushing anything that jumps out of its valence orbit back into the valence orbit. The electrostatic repulsion emits a photon. The magnetic field from the generator creates a cloud of electrons, is what it does. It's the light that carries the energy. There's a cloud of electrons that just free from the valence. I think I get it.